Are you asking yourself what will happen with the COVID pandemic, with the value of your money? And are you living in the Eastern Caribbean, Turks and Caicos, Jamaica, or Curacao? Then this episode is for you, because in this episode I'm going to debunk the myth that there is a scarcity of data. And today we're going to show you the balance of payments data. So if you are living in the Eastern Caribbean, Turks and Caicos, Jamaica, Curacao, then join this episode. It will be really, really awesome. Hey, my name is Rooney Camara and I'm very, very excited that you are here. This is the Data Analysis and Policy Show, the show where we turn data into analysis so that you can create the right policy. So, one of my students asked me yesterday, are you serious? Are you kidding that there is no scarcity of data? And he asked me about some data. And I have to tell you, one of the most important questions that I always hear from my students is there is a scarcity of data. That's why I have decided in 14 sessions every day around 4 o'clock Atlantic Standard Time, I'm going online to show you that there is data and you only need to know where to find the data. Now, if this is the first time on this show, please, I want you to sign up to www.caribbeanstrategicboardroom.com/waitlist. Go to that link. As soon as this episode is over, there will be a link in the description, and click on that link and make sure that you go join that list. Why would you join that list? Because I am creating something crazy, something which I've never done before, but it is only for 50 people, and only the people on that list will be notified whenever, as soon as that thing is ready. So I've never done that thing before, and I'm very, very exciting. And I will be releasing soon what that thing is. But today, let's talk about balance of payments. So, why would you care about balance of payments? As you know, the COVID pandemic has mean that tourism, for instance, is down in the Eastern Caribbean, in Curacao, in Jamaica, Turks and Caicos. The tourism is down. When tourism is down, then exports are going to be down. Then there are going to be less foreign reserves, less dollars coming in to your economy. But on open economies, small open economies in the Eastern Caribbean, we still need to eat. So we are importing. We are importing fuel. We are importing goods and services. We are importing everything. And the balance of payments will tell you what is the net effect. Are you receiving more dollars or are you spending more dollars? And what happens if you're spending more dollars? If you're spending more dollars, importing more than you are receiving in, your foreign reserves stock, your number of dollars can decrease. And can you imagine that, for instance, you have your currency is pegged, $1 is maybe 134 Jamaican dollars, and can you imagine what will happen if $1 becomes 154 Jamaican dollars? Can you happen if something happens in the Eastern Caribbean? $1 is 2.7 Eastern Caribbean. Can you imagine if something changes? If that changes, for instance, $1 becomes 5 Eastern Caribbean dollars. So we have to look at the foreign reserves to make sure what happens. Now I'm going to show you that there is actually a lot of data about the foreign about the balance of payments, about the exports and the imports. Now let me go to my screen right away because I don't want to lose too much of your time. Let's go to my screen. So it's a black screen, but I will move to something beautiful, which is my information. I am right here in the balance of payments. So what is this whole thing? Let me show you. Let me show you first the data. This is a dashboard, but let's look at the data first of the Eastern Caribbean. Now this is a spreadsheet with Eastern Caribbean data. Look at how much data there is between 2011 and 2016, but there is a more recent version till 2020 already of this data, and this data is from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. So if people are telling you that there is no data, there is a lack of data, tell them to come to me, Rooney Calmera. Tell them to watch this show. Tell them to subscribe for my community, because we are people who have data. So this is the whole balance of payments. Here you see the current account with the goods and services, and you see, for instance, merchandise, repair of goods, services, all those data here, which is the income. Here you see the capital and financial account. That is, for instance, the foreign direct investments are in there. And there you see all the financial account here, all this data. So if I can get this data, then you can also get this data. You can go to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank website and you can get this data. And this data is not only available for the whole Eastern Caribbean, but let's look at Dominica. We go to the Dominica tab and we see that this is Dominica, all this data for Dominica 2011 till 2016, but this data is more recent. I just wanted to show you this. Let's look at Montserrat. Montserrat also has this data. With all this information, so you know by now that there is a lot of data, but you need to know where to find them, and you need to be in my community so that I can show you where to find this data and how to analyze this data, because I'm going to give you a taste of an analysis that you can do with this data. Again, St. Kitts and Nevis here, all this data. So for all the islands of the Eastern Caribbean, we have the same format. We have the data, the balance of payments, which is actually the exports, imports, and the capital and financial account. Now, let me show you what I did with this data. Number one, the Eastern Caribbean. Let's go to the Eastern Caribbean tab. A lot of data here. And let me show you, let me go first and come back to this data. Now, once you have this data, it's a lot of data, but remember how this show is called, Data Analysis and Policy. So to get the analysis, you need to transform the data, and that's where I come in as your advisor, as your consultant, as your trainer. I come in. Okay, I have 24 years of experience doing this kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, I have created 12 macroeconomic models of all the islands of the Eastern Caribbean, Turks and Caicos, Jamaica, and Curacao. Okay, and we are continuously building more of the macroeconomic models, but I'm focusing right now on those islands in the Eastern Caribbean. Now imagine you want to do all this data for the Eastern Caribbean, but you want to crunch it. So let me show you how I crunched the data and I made it more simpler. So that's the second thing. If there is no data, if we have all the data and we want it in a different format, what we do is we are allowed to transform the data, because we are economists and I'm teaching you how to do this. we can transform that data. You understand? So if the data is not in the right format, I don't want you to complain and say, oh, I don't have this data, I have to wait for the statistical bureau to do this data. That's the old way of thinking. You understand? We know how to transform this data. Okay, I'm not saying to tell you create the data, but use the knowledge you have and create the data. So let me show you what I did. Before I do that, it is very important to have certain things. The exports are here and the imports are there. Imagine it is like this. The imports are higher than the exports. What does it mean? That more money is flowing out than money is getting in. And right now, in tourism, in most of the islands, that's the situation. There is no money coming in from the exports because the exports, due to the COVID pandemic, is down. Tourism is down. It's a little bit going up, but tourism is down. But we still have to eat. We still have to import. Now, if that exports and imports is too much, exports is lower than the imports, then you're having a deficit, and to be able to finance that deficit, you need actually foreign direct investments, for instance, to come in. That is on the capital and financial account. So if the capital and financial account is more producing, the balance is producing more money coming in than the current account, then your foreign reserve stocks will still be balanced. But if the current account has a huge deficit and you don't have enough money coming in on the capital and financial account, then your stock is going down. Now, and if you have less than 3 months of stocks, less than 3 months, that means that people are going to speculate against your currency. So that's basically what it is. Now I want to show you, I want to mention you one country where that happened. Suriname. Suriname, just $1 was 7 Surinamese dollar. And in September, what happened is $1 became 14 Surinamese dollars. Can you imagine what happens? Can you imagine what happens? If that happens, then the people will become poor, because we will need, the people in Suriname, they still need to buy food from outside. So food has doubled. The price of food have doubled. So what I'm talking here, the balance of payments, it's not only about theoretical stuff, it's things happening in the world right now, that if your balance of payments is not balanced, if you don't receive enough money coming in from the capital and financial account, it can mean that your stocks in dollars and euros goes down, and it will trigger an effect on your money, your currency, okay, the value of your money. So that's why we are doing this. So let me show you to what happens. So I went back to this whole thing of the Eastern Caribbean, and now we're going to do the analysis part. So this is the data, and what I did is I created this data much more condensed. So here I see the total imports of goods and services. I created this data. I created this data based on my knowledge. The imports. Here you will see the exports of goods and services. Exports of goods and services. And here you see the exports. So the exports in 2001 is 4.1 billion, and the imports of the whole Eastern Caribbean is 5.2 billion. So there is a deficit. There is a deficit on the balance of payments. Okay? No, there is not a deficit. The exports are higher than the imports, so that is good. Exports are higher than no, let me see, exports are lower than the imports. So there is indeed a deficit. Okay, current account deficit, here you see it, is 1.1 billion, 1.2 billion, 1.5 billion. Now that is not bad if you can finance it with capital and financial account. And if you looking here, balance of the capital and financial account, that is higher than this current deficit. You see, so it is 460 million higher. So because it was higher, that's why probably the number of the foreign reserve stocks, it increased in the Eastern Caribbean total. But in this year, here you see that the total balance of payment, the balance of the capital and financial account is lower than the current account deficit. So that's why the foreign reserve stocks probably decreased in this year for the total Eastern Caribbean. Now I don't know what is happening in 2019 and 2020, because we still have to analyze that, but this is the basic pattern. Now if you have this information for the whole Eastern Caribbean, you can also look at it for the islands. Here we have Dominica. Okay, sorry, here you see the same pattern, and you see for Dominica that in these years, the years that were red, here you had the balance of capital and financial account. If Dominica was on its own, they would have decreased their current their foreign reserve stocks if Dominica was there on their own. But thanks God, Dominica is part of the Eastern Caribbean currency union. But you see here the different islands, you can also do this analysis for them. Look at Montserrat. Also, we have the data for Montserrat, and Montserrat is actually, if you only look at the situation of Montserrat, if you only look at the capital and financial account of Montserrat, if you look at that, it is much lower than the deficit. That's why if Montserrat would have been on their own, not in the Eastern Caribbean, that means that their foreign reserve stocks would have decreased every year. You see here? So thanks God that Montserrat is part of the Eastern Caribbean, because the other islands of the Eastern Caribbean are balancing that for Montserrat. St. Kitts and Nevis, same analysis. And here you see St. Kitts and Nevis, that in 2014-2015 they would have had a decrease of their foreign reserves stocks, but they don't have the foreign reserve stock. There is the foreign reserve stock of the whole Eastern Caribbean. Now, why do I analyze these things? I analyze these things because you want to know if the export sector of each island is competitive, if each island has a current account deficit or not, because then you can look at the whole of the Eastern Caribbean. Now, what can you do else? You can also create beautiful dashboards, because once you have the data and you have created the data and you have compiled the data, now you can create dashboards. I'm going to show you some dashboard. Look at the dashboards. So now we are in the analysis part of data analysis and policy. We are not going to create policies today, but look at this. So people telling you that there is no data, there is a lack of data. I hope that I have debunked this myth. There is plenty of data, but you need to know where to find that data and what to do with that data. Now, if you look at the total Eastern Caribbean currency union, these graphs, I made these graphs based on the data that we just analyzed. Okay, so look at this. You see the blue, the red, that's the imports of goods and services of the Eastern Caribbean, and then here you see the blue is the exports of goods and services. The imports are much higher than the exports. That means that there is a deficit on the current account for the Eastern Caribbean. Here you see the deficit, and the deficit has been about a lot. During in 2008 it was like a very big deficit, but on the other side you see the capital, the balance of the capital and financial account. That's the opposite, and that's balancing this one. So for the whole Eastern Caribbean Union, probably the foreign reserve stocks did not decrease because the capital and the balance of financial and capital account was higher than the current account deficit. So then we have here the composition of the exports. So the exports of tourism, the total exports, the Eastern Caribbean is very, very dependent on the exports of tourism. It is 68% of the total exports of services. Okay? Then you have exports of transportation services, exports of business services, etc., and exports of government services. So all these things you can do with the analysis of the data. The exports of goods, 19% compared to export of services. So Eastern Caribbean is a very services dependent community. Then you will see for each island, Anguilla, you will see that whole imports here compared to the export, you see, and also the balance of capital, financial account, and the current account. For each island, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, Montserrat. Look at Montserrat, how much the imports were compared to the exports. St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Look at this, well, how this is widening for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So I want you to link with me, and here are some social media links for you to link with me. So that was the debunking of the myth that there is no data, there is a scarcity of data. I don't want you to say that anymore. I want you to come to me, and I want you to go there and click on that link, www.caribbeanstrategicboardroom.com/waitlist, because this has been only a small piece of what I wanted to show you, but I have something for 50 people. So make sure that you are on that list. Make sure that you tell your friends. Make sure that you post this live video on your wall. Share this with as much people as possible and help me spread the words. This was the balance of payments data for the whole Eastern Caribbean. You know where to get that, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. You have seen how important this is for your currency, for the stability on your currency. And I have already told you that, for instance, Suriname has had a depreciation of their currency, and they have become much more poorer because they had problems with their balance of payments. And everything is related. And in this shows, I cannot exactly tell you how it is related, but I know how it is related. And if you join that list, you will be the first one to know how you can relate those things, how you can analyze those things much deeper. And I'm creating something which is really awesome. It is awesome. It's going to be awesome, and I've never done this before, and I will never do this before after this also. So that was it. So I hope that you now see how everything is related with the balance of payments data. Tomorrow we'll come back here again at 4 o'clock Atlantic Standard Time, and I will come up with other data. Tell me in the link below what kind of data do you want me to tell you. It is going to be economic data because these shows are about economic data. It has to be about data in the 12 islands that I have selected, and it has to be data on a national level, data for the whole island. Tell me what kind of data you want you want me to talk about, and tell me what kind of data you cannot find. Okay, that's it for today. See you next time. Tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye.